So again, like on this topic of boosting your energy for heart health. So kind of using the ingredients that are important for heart health to help, make sure that you have the energy levels so that you can continue to do what you want to do throughout the day. And this is really important, the fact, like this idea in eating well, because not only does eating well help give you energy throughout the day, build your immune system, keep you strong, but it also decreases your risk for chronic diseases. Okay? And so with the diagnosis of cancer, sometimes certain people are at risk for chronic diseases such as heart disease. So really important to tackle, those ingredients that will help boost especially heart health. So in this specific recipe, we're looking at a fish. So we'll focus on some of those healthy fats that help with heart health. But fish is also a source of protein. So again, giving you that energy, help building your muscles so that you feel strong to do the things you want to do and help to boost your immune system.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to this next recipe. We went for something very simple. We're adding a few more ingredients in here. But if you have any questions, absolutely ask away. The first thing that I do want to focus on, and again, it's bridging from that sodium piece that Stephanie talked about before, is our spices or seasonings, right? So today we're focusing on a sort of a Moroccan flavor. And I'm making my own spice blend. This is not necessary. You can find spice blends that are already sort of mixed together. You can make your own with other ingredients. It doesn't have to be. Maybe there's some ingredients that you don't like there. But for today, I'm doing one that has some paprika. This is sweet paprika, a little bit of ground coriander, ground cumin, cinnamon, ginger, and turmeric. So this is sort of my blend, but you can obviously do whatever you want at home. If you toast them in advance ahead of time, you're gonna add a little bit more flavor, a little more aroma. It just sort of wakens them up a little bit. But to prepare them for this recipe, I'm just gonna mix them together, and I'm gonna add a couple tablespoons of olive oil, and this will help us to build or create this sort of paste, almost like this flavor oil or paste. So we're gonna mix that until it all comes together. It'll help to take away a little bit of that sort of chalkiness or sort of sandy texture that you get sometimes if you use a lot of ground spices and you don't cook them out properly at the beginning. Yeah. So this is what we're looking for. This like really nice, rich, flavorful oil. You can keep this, you can make this in advance, keep it in a little jar, keep it in the fridge and use it for a lot of things. It'll keep really, really well. But it's essentially just those spices. So I don't like adding salt to this part because I can't take it out after. Yeah. I'll season the dish at the end. Yeah. And we're using this for salmon. So Stephanie mentioned, actually we're using steelhead trout, which is like salmon. It's just one we usually do. Yeah,
so that fatty fish, which I'll talk a little bit more about the benefits of fatty fish as we go on in the recipe.
Yeah, so this is the fish that we're using. Now, you can, depending on the amount that you're making, you can cut them already into individual portions, or if you just want to do a whole piece, do a whole piece. So that's what I'm going to do here. And I'm just going to pour a little bit of that paste over top. Definitely go in with your hands. I'm going to try to stay as clean as possible so I'm just sort of trying to spread it out around as much as we can. I'll flip it to the other side and do both sides. If you have time, you can let this even sit in the refrigerator and let it marinate a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, and about the spice blend, like, if you're using ones that are pre-made and bought at the grocery store, they might be adding extra sodium and salt to it. So that's why making your own, again, you're able to control it. And like I mentioned earlier, the reason that, although we need some sodium in our diet, because it helps with water balance and hydration. Too much can increase your blood pressure, which could lead to hypertension, which is a risk factor for heart disease. And in addition, there are certain cancers that too much sodium increases the risk of those type of, for example, stomach cancer. So just kind of being wary of this and knowing that most of the sodium that people are getting too much of is actually coming from outside. So restaurants, prepackaged foods, things that are processed.
All right, so marinated the salmon. Let's say it's sat for like an hour or so. If you want to cook it right away, you can absolutely cook it right away. This is going to go into our pan. I added like maybe a teaspoon of olive oil. Don't need much because there's already a little bit on here, and there's already a lot of fat inside the salmon as well. So I don't have to add too much. So we're going to sear it just to get a little bit of color on both sides. Heating it up at this stage too helps to waken up those spices and activate a lot of those oils that are in the spices. Versus adding it at the end, you're probably not going to get as much. So we want to just get a little bit of color at the beginning before we start adding our other ingredients. So I have about a medium-high heat on the salmon. The reason I'm using salmon as well, salmon...
Trout.
Or trout, steelhead trout. It's almost exactly like salmon, which is why we like it. But above and beyond the fact that it's one of those healthier, fattier fishes, it does have a little bit more flavor because of that fat, because of that richness. So it's okay with those intense spices. If I had a really mild fish, if I put these really intense spices on it, you'll probably completely overpower it, right? But a fattier fish like this will actually balance out really well. Yeah, so we're just gonna get a little bit of color on both sides.
Yeah. So, and so is there another type of protein that you could use?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So this, I mean, traditionally it would be used either for lamb or for chicken or for beef.
Yeah. What about those vegetarians?
And you can do it for, yeah, I mean, you can use tofu or eggplant.
Nice.
I've done it with grilled eggplant before.
Yeah.
So if you're just, going off protein and just to do like side vegetable dishes, you can do it with that. Yeah. It's a delicious marinade. You would see it, especially in Moroccan cuisine, you would see it in tagine most of the times. Anyone know what I mean when I say tagine? So it's sort of this clay, almost like a pot. And you would slow cook your meats and vegetables in that. And it's a great recipe. You can definitely do it in a tagine as well. This one we're just trying to make it a little bit easier. I don't have a tagine, so we're just using a pan. So again, we're not trying to cook it all the way through at this point. We just want a little bit of color. So again, medium-high heat. I'm gonna flip it so you can see a lot of that sort of bark from the spices already developing on top. Keep an eye on it at this stage. This isn't one of those things to start multitasking and cutting up the vegetables because the spices will burn a little bit faster. So again, you don't need much time, like a minute, 2 minutes per side, just to get a little bit of color, and we'll speed it up. We got some nice color on top. So I'm gonna take this out of the pan, put it on a clean dish, just to set aside. And now we're gonna add some of our other vegetables. You can add whatever you want. This is a great way to use up some of those leftover veggies that you have in the refrigerator. If you have frozen vegetables, you can use that as well. I'm going very simple. I have carrots and onions.
And how did you slice those carrots?
Okay, so yeah, the carrots I sliced up. Again, the idea is to try to get them as consistent to the onions as possible so that they cook evenly. So for the carrots, here I'll show you in a second. So we're just putting it in the pan. Make sure that when you stir it around, you pick up any of those spices that were stuck to the bottom. For garlic, you can either slice it up or just crush it a little bit and throw it in just like that so that it adds the flavor. For the carrots, if you're very comfortable with your knife skills, what I do is start with a slice on the carrot to create a flat edge. because carrot is another one of those ingredients that will roll around. You don't want it rolling around. So now it's sturdy, right? And then I can cut little slices of the carrot. So I have these strips, and then I'll just, again, take your time, go against the strips, so you create sort of these little matchsticks. Now, so if you want to use a machine, use a machine. Another way, and this is actually a great technique that we teach as well, is who has a vegetable peeler at home? I think most people have a vegetable peeler. Just peel
so easy.
the carrot, into strips like this, and it works just as well.
Yeah.
Really, really great.
Yeah, because
So
I
you
guess
kind
you're
of work your
cooking
way
it
through
anyway, so the
Absolutely.
shape doesn't really matter.
And when you're looking at that, and if I was slicing an onion,
they're
it's going to have
same.
very, very sort of similar
Yeah.
consistency, thickness, and that's what we want. We just want it to be consistent so that it cooks
Evenly.
evenly. You got
Gotcha.
it. Yeah. So that's going to go in there.
Yeah. And what I like about this, again, like I mentioned earlier with, heart health, making sure you're getting a lot of vegetables throughout the day. And we're getting lots of color here. So the orange, the white from the onion, the white from the garlic. We always talk about eating the rainbow. Getting all the colors. Now, sometimes it's hard to get them all in one meal, but certainly, making sure that you get a few throughout the day is definitely a good start. And again, those are the ones, the vegetables are high in potassium for the most part, and that helps, not completely. I wouldn't say, eat all the sodium and then have tons of vegetables, right? You want to limit your sodium intake for your blood pressure, but also, intaking lots of vegetables for potassium.
I'm going to take a lemon, half a lemon, and what I want to do is cut side down into the pan, and that's going to cook and flavor everything as well. So I have my veg, I have the lemon, and then I'm going to return that piece of fish back to the pan on top, and it's going to do the rest of the cooking in here. So if I had a tagine, you're sort of creating this enclosed environment so that it sort of steams and cooks, and the idea is that you want a sort of a gentle heat so it sort of cooks slowly. So I'm going to do the same thing. When I add the salmon back on top, I add just a little bit of water, maybe about half a cup or so, and I'm going to turn it down to pretty much its lowest setting. So I'm going to actually throw it on, for me it's a 2, and I'll get the lid and I'll put it on top. And it's going to do the rest of the work in here for maybe the next 10 minutes or so, depending on how thick the salmon is. Because it's a very gentle heat at this point, I'm not worried about overcooking the salmon. It's just going to sort of allow it to cook through evenly and flake apart, and that's when we know it's ready to go. The sort of side accompaniment that we're gonna do today is couscous. We're doing a nice little apricot couscous. One of our favorite ingredients because it cooks so quickly. It's really little fuss, and it's a lot more accessible now to find actually whole grain couscous. It's called whole wheat couscous. That's what you look for. The proportions is 1-to-1, really, really simple. So this is, I don't know, maybe a little bit more than half a cup. And I'm gonna put it into a bowl, and then I'm gonna add some hot water. So again, you don't even need to throw this on the stove top, which is great. And we're looking for about equal amounts. I'm making a very small portion here. You can make a little bit more. But that water, I can also add a lot more flavor to as well. So if I have a little bit more of that paste, I've now seasoned the water and put that in there. So that goes right into the bowl. And then anything else that you want to add So I'm adding some dried apricots to this. So put some dried apricots in here. There we go. Okay, and then lid on top. So a little plate and trap the heat.
Yeah, and then you just kind of wait for it to
and it takes less than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Really, really easy.
Yeah. So I wanted to get back to the essential fatty acids. So when we're talking about omega-3s, which are really important for heart health. Now, we can't get omega-3s, but we can't make them in our body. So that's why it's really important to get them through food. And the reason that they're important is because they help reduce triglycerides, which are the unhealthy type of fat in the blood. And they also increase HDL cholesterol. So know that there's two different kinds of cholesterol. LDL, which is the lousy, the bad cholesterol, and HDL is the good cholesterol. So that's the one you want to have most of. And the combination of the low triglycerides, the high HDL, and the low LDL reduces the risk of heart disease. So some foods that are high in omega-3 fatty acids are cold water fish. This includes things like salmon, trout, mackerel, sardines, Arctic char. So, you know, the recommendation from Health Canada is to aim to have at least 2 servings of fish per week, and to aim for those fish to be those fattier types of fish, which include those omega-3s. Now, obviously, some people don't like fish, they don't like the taste, it's not part of their diet, which is okay, because there are types of foods that you can get these omega-3s without having fish. So things like flax seeds, but you want to make sure to ground them, chia seeds, hemp hearts, walnuts are all excellent sources of omega-3s as well. You can also now find omega-3s in eggs. So that would just mean that those hens or chickens were being fed ground flaxseed. So that incorporates the omega-3s into them as well. So really just like different ways of finding these healthier fats. Of course, as today we used trout as the example, but it also, again, has the other purpose of providing you with energy, building your muscles, giving you that energy to go, and the omega-3, those fats are a kind of an additional complement to both heart health and having high amounts of energy.
Perfect. Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, so we're pretty much ready to plate. That's how quick the couscous is.
Yeah.
So we're gonna take this lid off, and when all the liquid has been absorbed, just take a fork
Break it.
and fluff it up. So I mean, it's again really easy, and especially with some of the whole grains, if you're trying to include more whole grains, there's a lot of those grains that do take a little bit longer to cook. You know, if you're switching to brown rice, it's going to take a little bit longer. You know, barley and some of those other ingredients do take a little bit longer. This one's really, really simple. So couscous is done. So I'll plate one up here. Put some of that on top, and the dried apricots will reconstitute a little bit from that liquid, and so you'll get this like nice sort of soft sweetness, a little bit of a chewiness to it. Really, really tasty. The fish should be ready to go. And so we're gonna add some of those veggies on top. So you can see they're nice and soft, but the carrots should still have a little bit of a bite to them. And then our salmon, which I didn't portion, could have done it ahead of time, but it's even just by lifting it, it's flaking apart. So I know it's cooked all the way through. And that lemon, you can see, is sort of caramelized a little bit on the bottom and softened quite a bit. So I can even use that to squeeze a little bit of that lemon on top. And that's it. And then if we want to add some mint or cilantro, I can put, yeah, it doesn't have to be cilantro, it could be mint.
Got a mixture there.
Got some cilantro haters in the crowd, you know. Maybe some almonds, again, for some crunch. And that is it. It looks harder than it is, but we did everything together.
Yeah.
And that's it. So that's the Moroccan salmon with the apricot couscous.
Yeah.